The moment an avoidant realizes your silence is not pain but peace, the whole game breaks. They expected your panic, they expected the late-night message, the long explanation, the emotional chase that proved they still mattered more than your dignity. But instead, they found distance, calm distance, and that is the part they never planned for, because an avoidant can handle being feared, they can handle being misunderstood, they can even handle being resented. But what shakes them to the core is being calmly released by someone who finally knows their worth. Read that again in your spirit. You did not collapse. You did not beg. You did not run after someone who kept running from you. You stood still. You chose yourself. And suddenly their pride, the thing they trusted most, no longer looked strong. It looked hollow. It looked small. It looked like a wall built to hide fear. Stay with me, because this is where it turns. When your self-respect becomes stronger than their ego, they are forced to face a truth they spent years avoiding. Walking away is not power when the person you left becomes happier without you. That is not control, that is loss. And once they feel that loss, really feel it, nothing inside them stays untouched. All through the relationship, they were moving by a private calculation. Keep enough distance to stay safe. Give enough attention to keep you close. Reveal just enough emotion to stop you from leaving, but never enough to feel exposed. That pattern felt normal to them. It felt smart. It felt like strength. Their pride told them that needing less meant winning more. Their independence became a costume they wore so often, they forgot it was a costume at all. They believed the upper hand belonged to the one who could detach first, withdraw first, go cold first, leave first. And for a while, maybe that seemed true, because as long as you kept reaching, as long as you kept explaining, forgiving, waiting, and hoping, their strategy still worked. Your effort covered their emptiness, your loyalty gave meaning to their distance, your patience made their inconsistency look deeper than it was. But then something changed in you, quietly, strongly. You stopped measuring love by how much pain you could survive. You stopped calling scraps a connection. You stopped confusing emotional confusion with chemistry. And when that change happened, the entire balance shifted. Not with drama, not with revenge, with clarity. That is what makes it so powerful. You did not need to beat them. You only needed to stop abandoning yourself. Once that happened, their old positions stopped working. Their distance no longer made them mysterious, it made them absent. Their silence no longer felt powerful, it felt empty. Their control no longer looked impressive, it looked like fear in expensive clothing. The first shock hits when they pull away and you do not follow. This matters more than most people understand, because many avoidants are used to withdrawal creating movement in the other person. They step back, you step forward, they go quiet, you get louder, they become uncertain, you work harder. That rhythm feeds their sense of control. It lets them believe they are the prize, the mystery, the one with options, the one who can leave and still be wanted. But when your self-respect wakes up, you break that rhythm. You do not rush to fill the silence. You do not beg for clarity from someone committed to confusion. You do not throw your heart harder at a closed door. You simply notice the lack of reciprocity and adjust your energy. You match what is real. You stop performing love for someone who only accepts it when it costs you your dignity. And this is where their pride starts to crack. Because without your chase, their withdrawal loses meaning. Without your pursuit, their distance is no longer magnetic. It becomes lonely. Without your emotional labor, their coldness is no longer power. It is just inability. This is the moment they start asking questions they never wanted to ask. If you are not chasing, did they misjudge your value? If you are not fighting for them, were they ever truly worth the fight? If you can live without what they offered, then what exactly were they so proud of? And once those questions enter, the old story starts to crumble. Watch that carefully. Pride survives on an audience. Self-respect does not. The second you stop watching the performance, they are left alone with the person behind it. Then comes the deeper shock. Their withdrawal does not wound you the way it used to. It frees you. That part hits hard. They expected you to be restless, spinning, overthinking every little shift. They thought you would replay the last conversation, search for clues, blame yourself, and keep trying to repair a bond they kept damaging. But instead, you breathe easier, you sleep better, you hear your own thoughts again. You notice that your body is no longer tense all the time. You notice how much energy you are spending trying to stabilize someone committed to emotional instability, and once you feel that peace, really feel it, you cannot unfeel it. This is why their old tactics stop working. You are no longer trying to win their approval. You are protecting your peace. That changes everything. Now, when they disappear, you do not spiral, you refocus. When they act indifferent, you do not prove your worth. You remember it. When they become inconsistent, you do not shrink your standards. You raise your awareness, and the avoidant feels the difference even if you say nothing. Silence from a wounded person sounds different than silence from a healed one. One is waiting, the other is done. One still hopes to be chosen. The other has already chosen themselves. That is why your calm becomes so unsettling to them. Because your peace exposes something their pride cannot hide. They were only powerful when you were willing to be powerless. The second you stop participating in that exchange, the illusion collapses, and this is where they often test harder. More distance, more confusion, more mixed signals, but your self-respect stays steady. No chase, no panic, no collapse, just a clear understanding that love should not require you to betray yourself. Another thing that unsettles them is when they realize you actually mean what you say. Many people speak boundaries, fewer live them. They are used to hearing strong words followed by weak follow-through. They are used to people saying, "I need consistency," and then accepting crumbs. They are used to people saying, "I won't do this anymore," and then returning the second a little attention appears. Over time, that teaches them a dangerous lesson. Wait out the emotion, and the boundary will soften. Give a small apology. Offer a brief improvement, act vulnerable for one moment, and access will be restored. But your self-respect changes that script. When you say you will not accept half-love, you mean it. When you say inconsistency is a deal-breaker, you act accordingly. When you say there will be consequences, your actions line up with your words. That alignment terrifies them because it removes their usual leverage. They cannot pull you back with temporary effort. They cannot keep you attached with tiny rewards after long periods of neglect. They cannot use confusion as a chain because you no longer treat confusion as depth. And when someone loses access to controlling the outcome, panic begins. Not always loud panic, sometimes it looks calm on the outside, but inside there is real agitation, because now they are dealing with a person who cannot be managed through hope, fear, guilt, or delay. Your predictability becomes your power. They know where you stand. They know what happens if they fail to meet the standard. They know your self-respect is not a speech, it is a structure, and a structure cannot be sweet-talked the way insecurity can. What makes it even harder for them is watching you grow while they remain emotionally stuck. Your self-respect does not just protect you from them, it builds you. It pushes you into healing. It pushes you into stronger friendships, healthier habits, better choices, deeper self-awareness. You begin to repair what the relationship wore down. You stop living in reaction mode. You start living by design. You become more grounded, more selective, more peaceful, more whole, and that growth becomes visible. It shows up in your face, in your tone, in the way you carry silence without fear. It shows up in how quickly you recognize red flags, how naturally you say no, how clearly you walk away from what once would have hooked you. Meanwhile, if they stay trapped in pride, they keep repeating the same pattern with different people. Same fear, same distance, same emotional shortcuts, same hidden hunger for connection mixed with the same terror of intimacy. That contrast is painful for them, because they often thought they were the more independent one, the stronger one, the one less affected by all this. But your self-respect leads to actual freedom, while their pride often leads to defended isolation. You become truly self-sufficient. They remain emotionally barricaded. You become secure enough to receive love and reject disrespect. They remain stuck between wanting closeness and sabotaging it. And this is where the story becomes brutal for them. You become the person they pretended to be. Calm, whole, unmoved by chaos, able to stand alone without becoming numb. It gets deeper than that. Your growth is proof that pain did not break you, it refined you. Their pride, on the other hand, may keep them preserved but unchanged. They also struggle when they see that your boundaries are not just for them, They are part of who you are now. This is important because pride often looks for a personal narrative. It wants to believe, you only change because of me, or you are only this firm with me because you are angry. But then they watch your life and realize something uncomfortable. You are not just unavailable to them, you are unavailable to disrespect from anyone. Friends, family, work, dating. Everywhere now there is a standard. You do not over-explain simple truths. You do not twist yourself into shapes that make other people comfortable. You do not call self-erasure love anymore. Your boundaries are consistent. They are clean. They are not punishment. They are protection. And that consistency destroys any fantasy that your distance is some cruel act aimed at them personally. No. You are simply no longer available for what drains you. That truth creates jealousy, because now they can see that your self-respect is attractive to healthy people. The same standard they resisted is the same standard that draws better energy into your life. People who appreciate honesty, people who respect timing, people who meet effort with effort, people who see your boundaries and feel invited to rise, not challenged to conquer. That stings them more than they admit, because it proves you were never too much. You were just too real for someone committed to emotional hiding, and now they have to watch others value what they mishandled. They have to watch the very qualities they called difficult become the reason someone else sees you as rare. That is a hard mirror, very hard, because it tells them the problem was never your standards, it was their unwillingness to meet them. At some point, shame begins to rise, even if they cannot fully name it. Deep down, many avoidants were testing limits the entire time, not always in a fully conscious way, but the pattern was real. How long will you stay? How much can you take? How little can they give before you finally walk? How often can they disappear and still return to access, affection, comfort, and emotional safety? Those tests were feeding their ego. Every time you tolerated more than you should have, it confirmed a painful lie inside them, that love could be measured by what someone was willing to suffer. But then you stopped. You found your line, you found your bottom, you said enough, and suddenly the test backfired. Because by refusing to accept less, you did not fail love. You passed the real test. You proved that your heart is not available at the cost of your dignity. You proved that your loyalty has standards. You proved that love for another person does not require hatred of yourself. That creates shame because it forces them to face what they were really asking for. They were not just asking to be loved. They were often asking to be chosen above your own well-being. They were asking you to accept what should never be accepted so they could feel important without becoming accountable. And when you refused, the truth became undeniable. You did love them. You just did not love them more than your own soul. That is the part their pride cannot digest, because it means your departure was not coldness. It was self-honor. It means your boundary was not rejection. It was wisdom. And wisdom is much harder to fight than emotion. Once they understand that the old dynamic is gone, many of them try to restore it. This is where things can get confusing if you are not clear. Suddenly they become more available. They send a thoughtful message. They open up just enough to sound sincere. They talk about change. They hint at regret. They may even speak the language you begged to hear before. But timing matters. Motive matters. Consistency matters more than words ever will. Your self-respect has taught you that a person can miss access without actually changing their pattern. They can hate losing control without being ready for accountability. They can feel lonely without becoming safe. And that is why you no longer rush to reopen the door just because someone finally knocks with better manners. You watch, you observe, you let time reveal what emotion tries to hide. If the message is real, it will survive structure. If the apology is real, it will survive patience. If the growth is real, it will survive the absence of instant reward. This is where many avoidants fail, because pride wants quick re-entry, quick forgiveness, quick emotional access without the long, humble work that genuine repair requires. They want reassurance before responsibility, closeness before change, a soft landing before hard truth. But your self-respect does not do rushed reunions with unresolved patterns. It does not trade years of hard-earned peace for one emotional evening. So when their efforts do not melt you the way they once did, the panic sharpens, because now they can feel that the old emergency exit is locked. You are not moved by intensity anymore. You are moved by integrity, and integrity takes time. This is also the moment when the difference between pride and self-respect becomes impossible to ignore. pride is defensive. It is loud inside, but fragile underneath. It says, "I don't need anyone," when what it often means is, "I'm afraid of what needing someone will reveal." It protects image over truth. It values control over connection. It would rather lose love than lose face. Self-respect is different. It is not built on pretending you need nothing. It is built on honoring what you truly need and refusing what harms your spirit. It is quiet strength. It does not need applause. It does not need to dominate. It does not need to win every emotional exchange. It simply knows what it will and will not allow. That is why your self-respect feels stable while their pride feels exhausting. Pride needs maintenance. It needs distance, denial, stories, excuses, blame, emotional smoke. Self-respect needs none of that. It stands on truth. It says, "Yes, I want love, but not at the price of self-betrayal." It says, "Yes, I can forgive, but I will not confuse forgiveness with access." It says, "Yes, I can understand your wounds, but I will not live inside them." And when an avoidant sees that difference clearly, something deep inside them starts to tremble because they realize what they called strength may have just been fear with good branding. They realize you are not hard because you walked away. You are healthy. They realize they were not powerful because they stayed distant. They were protected, and protected is not the same thing as free. That realization alone can haunt a person for years. Then comes the hardest truth of all. The very pride that helped them leave is the same pride that often stops them from truly coming back, because real repair is not dramatic. It is humble. It asks for a level of vulnerability pride cannot tolerate. A real apology has no performance in it. Real accountability does not defend itself every 5 seconds. Real change does not demand immediate trust. It earns it slowly, quietly, consistently, but pride hates that path. Pride wants a version of reunion where they can keep their ego intact, keep their story intact, keep their emotional defenses intact, and still regain access to you. Your self-respect does not allow that version. If they want another chance, it would require honesty about the damage, real ownership of the pattern, sustained inner work, and enough humility to accept that trust returns in drops, not floods. That is the crossroads. Keep the pride and lose you. Or surrender the pride and face the work they have avoided for years. Many people freeze there. They want the reward without the surrender. They want the closeness without the confession. They want the door open without having to become someone safe enough to walk through it. And because your self-respect is now stronger than your longing, you do not negotiate with half measures. You do not create loopholes for charm, chemistry, or history. That is what makes this so final. Not because love never existed, but because love without accountability is no longer enough for you. That is a huge shift. And once someone sees that you really mean it, they understand they are not competing with another person. They are competing with the peace you found after them. Most people lose that competition. Long after the connection ends, your self-respect keeps leaving a mark on them. You become a reference point, not just because of how you loved, but because of how you left. With dignity, with clarity, without trying to destroy them just because they hurt you. That kind of exit is unforgettable. It becomes the moment they compare other experiences to, the person who would not be bent, the person who cared deeply but still chose themselves, the person whose standards did not disappear when emotions got strong. That memory can do one of two things. It can become a wound they carry but learn nothing from, or it can become a turning point. Some people finally look inward after losing someone like that. They stop romanticizing distance. They stop calling emotional avoidance independence. They enter the uncomfortable work of learning how to stay present, how to name fear, how to stop punishing closeness for reminding them of their wounds. Others do the opposite. They keep the pride. They keep the image. They keep losing people who are healthy enough to leave. They keep calling it bad luck, bad timing, bad matches, anything except what it is, a pattern. Either way, your self-respect changes the story. Because once someone has seen a person walk away from dysfunction without losing their softness, it becomes harder to keep pretending that coldness is strength. They may try, but the memory stays, the contrast stays, the truth stays, and that truth whispers every time they repeat the same old cycle. You lost someone real because you chose armor over intimacy. That is not a small realization. It has a long life. There is also a social layer to all of this that many avoidants do not prepare for. They may tell themselves you were unreasonable, too demanding, too sensitive, too strict, but then the world does not agree. Mutual connections quietly understand why you stepped away. New people respect the standards you now carry. Healthy relationships begin to form around you, not in spite of your self-respect, but because of it. Your choices start making sense to others. People can feel the difference between someone who is bitter and someone who is boundaried. They can feel the difference between punishment and peace. They can see that choosing yourself did not make you colder, it made you clearer, and that social reflection matters, because it removes one of the last places pride likes to hide. The story that you were the problem begins to fail when reality keeps confirming otherwise, when others respond well to your honesty, when better connections enter your life, when your energy becomes calmer and stronger instead of more chaotic. It becomes harder for them to keep pretending your boundaries were cruelty. No, your boundaries were health, your standards were wisdom. Your departure was not selfishness, it was self-preservation. That outside confirmation becomes another mirror they cannot easily avoid, and if they are still clinging to pride, that mirror can feel brutal, because now it is not just your peace telling the truth. Life around you is telling it too. People are drawn to your steadiness. Opportunities open around your clarity. Your world expands after choosing yourself. That is powerful evidence, evidence that love does not always look like staying. Sometimes love looks like refusing to let another person turn your heart into a waiting room. Sometimes their reaction